Yo, 2011 Acura MDX. This thing's got some funky brake problems. I hit the brakes and it kind of goes halfway to the floor and I can pump it up, and sometimes it bleeds down and sometimes it doesn't. Right now it feels really nice. I'll wait like 10 seconds. It goes right back down again. Then I can pump it up and hold it, and it's fine. It almost feels like there's air in the system, but sometimes it's squishy all the time. He said he had this problem about a year ago, and he took it to a mechanic, and he said they bled the brakes, and he didn't have a problem for about a year, and then all of a sudden it just cropped up again. So I'm just going to replace the master cylinder and get all the old brake fluid out of it, because it really doesn't look good, and I can't believe somebody even did a flush to it. See what we got here. About a brand new one with the reservoir. Oh, they gave me plugs. Oh, how nice. I got these little plastic plugs in here so I can bleed this thing out. I'm going to bench bleed this thing. Take these little caps off. These things do leak a little bit. Whatever. I'd be surprised if they didn't. Sometimes the remanufactured ones come without a reservoir, and if you get one, you got to knock this roll pin out of the factory one, and then kind of like stick a screwdriver up under here and just rock this back and forth, and it'll pop off. I'm just going to put this in the bench now. Just lightly clamp it down. I got a brand new bottle of brake fluid. Fill this up. Now I just have a big damn Phillips screwdriver, and I can just gradually push this plunger in, and it should push all the air up out of the master cylinder. And I just want to keep pumping on this until this shaft gets rock hard. I can see it coming up. Usually takes a while. Kind of tap on the master a little bit. Make sure all the air comes up to the top. There's just a couple little bubbles coming out of it right now. Looking like I got about 1/4 of an inch of travel here. I'll let it sit some more. I think I got it. Now, a lot of times I can do master cylinders without bleeding out the entire system. I'm going to do that anyways on this, but I'm also going to do it the way I always do it. The first thing I like to do is take these lines and just try to bend them down just a little bit. Just force my weight on them and just push them down a little bit, because what that does is it puts the angle of the line up. So when I put the new one in and I go to bleed it out, I can just leave these nuts just a little bit loose, and then all of the air that's still in the line, it's going to work its way up to the top of the line, so I can bleed this master cylinder out without having to bleed out the entire system. I have a 12mm line wrench here. A lot of times you can use just a regular wrench. I'm going to crack these loose just a little bit. There's a connector on the other side of the reservoir. There's a tab I push in on the back side. I can unplug that. And then there's 2 bolts on the master cylinder. Just because it's easy for me, I'm going to get in here with a 12mm swivel socket and a really long extension. Get both of these nuts off of here. This will get a little messy, so I'm going to throw some rags down underneath the master just so it picks up all of the brake fluid. Take these lines off now. I'll just use a regular wrench now. And I'll just pull these lines out of the way and take the master cylinder out. There's an O-ring that seals this up pretty good too, so you're going to have to wiggle it around a little bit to get that O-ring. I'm going to put some lubricant on this O-ring. You can use silicone paste or something. I have Honda Urea grease, just because. And I can put a little bit on the inside of here. You don't really need to, but whatever. Put this back in. Make sure the push rod goes into the shaft. Roll it around, it'll pop right in. Feels like it's right. I'm just going to tighten these by hand. I can't imagine they'd be any more than 16 foot-pounds. That'd be a good guess. I'm going to take these plastic caps off one at a time. Now I just got to make sure I don't cross thread these. If I cross thread these, that's going to be trouble. Yeah, it's been dripping a little bit of fluid out of here too while I tighten this up, but that's good because it's just going to help bleed it out even better. I'm just going to snug this line down. I don't really need to get it tight, just so I can work on the other one and have it not leak anymore. Just kind of holding onto the line and wiggling it around to try to get this started. It feels like I got it. Okay, those are snugged down really nice. It's good to have a handy helper when you do this, but I don't, so I got to do it my dang self. I'm just going to loosen these up like a half a turn. I don't know, I got them about a half, 3/4 of a turn loose, just so they can leak a little bit. Like I say, these brake lines are bent down just a little bit, so all the air is going to go right up to the top, and it should just squirt right out of the top of the nuts. Now I'm just going to use a little pry bar action. I'm just going to lightly push down on the brake pedal, and I'm just going to push the seat up to squish it all down like this. Just nice and easy. Okay, it's all the way to the floor. And it's squished a whole bunch of fluid and air out of the master and out that top of the line. So now I can just close these back up. I can get my pry bar out of here. I just pumped that up a few times. Now I'm going to wait 10 seconds. Feels like there might still be a little bit of air in there. Yeah, there's still a little air in it. I could do it a couple more times, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to bleed out the system. I think it's going to be fine. It feels pretty nice. So I just got all 4 corners open. I took all the bleeder screws off. And I'm just letting them all gravity bleed out until I get nice, clean, clear fluid. I got it all bled out. It doesn't pump up at all. But I let it sit for 10 seconds and it's right up to the top. So I'm going to put some tires on this and go test drive it and make sure it's cool. All 4 of the brakes were locking up on this thing. So I pulled over and I loosened up the brake lines and it freed everything up. A bunch of fluid came squirting out of it. And then I pulled it into garage and all 4 of the brakes were locked up again, and I just loosened up the master cylinder. I loosened up the 2 bolts and pulled it back. And now the tires turn. So I got to do an adjustment on that master cylinder. I got to take it out and move the adjustment rod in. O'Reilly said they had a remanufactured master cylinder, so I went there because I wanted to put one in because it would have been, you know, a Japanese Honda part that they just fixed. So everything would have fit right. And it turned out to be a brand new Chinese in the box. Instead of dealing with all of that, there is a rod inside of here that you can adjust. That's inside of the booster. But you need some special H tool to hold on to the rod and then turn it with a 7mm. And I wasn't about to do any of them adjustments. It's just a big pain in the butt. So I just took the 2 nuts off and just slid this thing back, and the O-ring actually popped off. I had to pop the O-ring back on so the booster would seal. And I just got a couple of fender washers and put them in there. It's about 100,000ths of an inch thick, 2 fender washers. And I tried one and it was still too tight. Did the same thing, loosened up the bolts and pulled it back, and it was nice and loose again. So I did 2, and it seemed really nice. I test drove it. It's really nice. I hit the brakes a bunch. I hit the anti-lock brakes a couple of times because sometimes when you activate the ABS, the pedal height goes up. It moves around and works better. The only other thing I got to do is clean up my little brake fluid mess. Brake fluid is hygroscopic, meaning that it absorbs moisture and it just washes off with water. So I just got a bucket of water and I'm just going to just pour it around. And call it clean, call it good, call it done. Okay, bye.